And I'd now like to invite Tim to the stage and to present the findings from the sentiment survey. Good afternoon, Tim.
Good afternoon, Matt. Thank you very much for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time this afternoon. What we aimed this survey was to have a look at growing the amount of data available, and so make sure that we can all understand exactly what's going on and make some informed decisions as to how we move forward. So with that in mind, let me move through these slides. So I won't dwell on the introduction because we've all heard it before and it's been very well documented this morning. Perhaps most important, though, is the fourth paragraph here, which is the United Nations World Tourism Organization reported a 4% growth in international tourism arrivals in Africa in 2019 and predicted similar growth in 2020. Now, this is obviously going to be different now, but it does prove that we started from a base, and this was very much echoed by the speakers this morning. So just to paint the picture, we started by asking people where they came from, and rather than where they come from, I think the most important thing here is where they don't come from. And a third of respondents were from outside Africa, and I think that's very exciting. During a time of crisis or a time of challenge, it's very easy to fall back into your key markets and what you know best. But Africa is a new market for many, and people really are pushing forward and still interested in that market. And I think that's a very positive note. So one of the key questions was understanding when we will be able to travel again. And we split this question in two, one for the regional travellers and one for the long haul, because I think both are very important. And I think one is likely to come back before the other. I think this is key here. Half of people expect borders to open very soon, certainly before September. And I think this is a very positive statement, and particularly positive in regions like our virtual region of East Africa that we're in today, because of the East Africa Trade Organization and so on. And I think what is very, very important about understanding this is governments are managing a thankless task, and it's very easy to criticize government. And I think there's not a single government globally that's not made a mistake during this process. But I think we need to work together and to grow this going forward. And I think one of the key stats for me is just thinking about the sheer quantum of cash that's been lost. And I think it's important that we understand that it's 55 billion US dollars. And 55 billion US dollars in a funny sort of way is worth more in emerging markets like much of Africa than it is in the US. And that's so far. So that's not at the end of the pandemic at all. So we really need to understand, and we need to get these borders open as quickly as possible. The next question we asked was about the international, and the vast majority really not expecting many borders to be open before the end of the year in one form or another. And this will obviously vary from country to country, and some countries are saying they're clear of COVID and are ready to open, and others are not. But today I'm sitting in the UK, and there are a list of about 60 countries that the government have said UK citizens can travel to without requiring quarantine on return to the UK. And it's very, very disappointing that there's not one country in mainland Africa that is open to us right now. So even if, for example, Kenya opened her borders tomorrow, upon arrival back into the UK, I would be expected to sit in quarantine for 2 weeks. So opening borders is one way, but it needs to be in conjunction with the main key markets. And I think that's somewhere for governments to work together to make sure that the agreements are both ways and we can really travel, because travel is a two-way process mostly. We leave and we return. So in conjunction to that is, and as we heard from John and his panel session earlier, and what the Honourable Minister was saying, aviation is absolutely crucial, and it's great to open those borders. But the most important thing is we need to be able to get there, and you can't get there unless the flights are travelling. And not unreasonably, it's a very similar poll results from our respondents. But of course, we do need to do some more work on this and really understand the reasons behind that travel, and the aviation companies and need to understand that before they actually start traveling and offering those flights. But what is key is that there is clearly pent-up demand to visit Africa, and we've heard from many speakers this morning saying how disappointed they are to be doing this from their back bedrooms rather than within Africa. And as excellent as this session is, it's not nearly as good as being there in person, having a cup of coffee together, shaking hands and so on. And whilst that may be a long way away, we do need to move towards that. Now, this is, we moved on to how soon are you likely to visit a different country? Varying slightly from when you are able to, will you take that up? And I think this is really very exciting because more than half of all our respondents expect to visit a different country 3 months of the ban being lifted. And this is showing the importance of the regional trade zones and agreements, because the majority of these visitors will be for business. And I think this is really exciting, and I think it is positive that we all want to travel, and we believe in the hospitality of African countries, and we want to move forward. Slightly more concerning is half of the respondents who currently live outside the continent are not planning to travel to Africa at the moment. And it will be very interesting to do some more work with those guys and understand why, and if there is anything we can do to make potential markets more attractive to them. And just to coincide exactly with the assumptions that Thomas and SDR had made, business is by far the most important and likely purpose for travel to Africa. Now, this is good news, but it's also slightly concerning in so much as Thomas said, the other regions of the world that are recovering more quickly than Africa is because leisure is leading the way. And it's absolutely clear from our limited survey here that it's business that will be driving the travel into Africa again. And so any slow recovery is likely to be hindered by going straight into business rather than a slow and steady recovery through leisure. So we may have to wait a little bit longer to see that recovery rather than the when compared to the other regions of the world. Positively, and in line with what many people believe, people are not going to wait for a vaccine. The vast majority are ready to travel as and when governments deem it fit, and they're prepared to take their own precautions. I think this is positive. It is higher than when we did a similar survey for the Middle East, and perhaps that is, as spoken about earlier, that the African population are used to, unfortunately, many of the challenges and are prepared to take personal responsibility for these issues, such as Ebola and going HIV and so on. And they are prepared, and malaria even, and they are prepared to take responsibility rather than wait for a vaccine. And this all comes down to the most important factor in the decision making, and it's clear that governments and safety and security have the absolute eye of the potential traveller, and this is what's going to be driving their decision making. It's not about price, it's not about the destination itself, and I think that stems back to the idea of business travel leading the recovery rather than leisure, because as we saw from Matt's photographs and the work that the children were doing about promoting tourism in Kenya in particular and all the other great destinations, it's not those destinations that are driving it, it's the feeling of safety and security, it's the feeling of being able to enter and leave in a mature, sensible way and not put yourself and your family at undue risk. And I think that that's the most important thing. Whilst the pricing issue was towards the bottom, obviously this is not a reason for operators to drive pricing particularly highly, and I think this is key, that if you were to drive prices too high, then people will vote with their feet and they will continue to do these conference calls and webinars rather than travel. But I think with proper pricing, then I think people will travel. And again, the great news for hoteliers, how likely are you likely to stay in a hotel? Within a month, 50% of respondents. Really, really positive. People believe in hotels. The work that the hoteliers have been doing to promote them is going well, and they are looking to stay as quickly as possible. So I think that's very positive. The caution I would mention to hoteliers is confidence can obviously be brittle. Keep up the good work and make sure those preventions and protections you're giving everybody, staff and customers, continue to be as strong as possible. And then we selected a group of countries that we thought people may be travelling to, and absolutely thrilled to say that we underestimated it. And there were 32 different countries that were mentioned from our respondents that they were likely to visit, which is really, really exciting, very, very encouraging. Not surprising, the top three, South Africa, Kenya and Ethiopia. But it's very interesting to see that Senegal, Botswana, Rwanda, Benin and Zimbabwe also had significant responses as well. So going back to what previous speakers were speaking about, this is not just people wanting to go back to their own historic countries of business. They're looking to do work in many new markets, and this should lead to more economic growth across the whole continent. Now, where people are likely to stay, 52% are likely to stay in a branded internationally branded hotel, and a further 20% in an independent hotel. So the perceived safety and actual safety of the work the brands have been doing in publicising the work that they're doing in the health and hygiene is really working well. And I think this is very positive. The other key for me on this slide is that homestays take a significant portion at about 11%, but many governments globally are saying that this will be the last accommodation they open for business because it's so difficult to regulate and manage from a health and hygiene perspective. And these numbers will vary in actuality when we get through to it, but it is positive from the hotelier's perspective. Very much in line with the poll that Matt ran at the beginning of the session, and I'm sure he will run it again at the end. The vast majority of people expect the travel and hotel industry only to return to 2019 levels in 2 to 3 years' time. There were people who said we will never return to prior lockdown levels, and I very much hope that's an emotive answer rather than anything else. But I think the majority being 3 years is very much in line with the audience today.
How we do, Tim?
This for me is a key slide, and it's something that I've been keen to promote for many years. For me, this is Africa becoming a sustainable hotel business, and it's showing that the vast majority believe that we will be growing into an industry that is all about a core business, a sustainable business for Africans, by Africans, which is topped up by international travellers. Very, very exciting, and I think this is perhaps a silver lining to the very, very cloud of COVID. There's many challenges to overcome, including getting the offering right and the pricing right for those local and regional guests, but it's absolutely key to building a sustainable hotel business. And the overworked phrase from Winston Churchill recently, which, as he said while he was working to form the United Nations, was never let a good go to waste. And I think that's important here, that we don't let this crisis go to waste, and we take the opportunity to work through together how we make the industry more sustainable and more attractive to more of the local populace.
I think that's a great way. If I may interrupt, Tim, actually, because we're running a bit over time. I don't want to cut you off, but we're 10 minutes running over, and what I suggest is that if we're able to ask you to go to your stand and present the final couple of slides there, then we can move on with the main presentation, try and catch up a bit of time. But I think that was a good place to leave it. Don't let a good crisis go amiss during these times. So thank you, Tim, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Matt.
And please go to the HVS stand now, and obviously Tim can walk you through the remainder of the slides.